Welcome to the Weaving Magick Podcast,
where we discuss the different ways to weave magic throughout your daily life.
We are your hosts, Alyssa, Lilly,
and Tara Webb,
and we are thrilled to guide you in this magical journey of exploration and ritual. Hey Magic Weaver, welcome back to another episode of the Weaving Magick Podcast. I'm your host, Alyssa Lilly, and I'm here for a solo cast. It's been a while. I'm excited to chat with you, and just to let you know, we are on YouTube now, so this is my first solo cast recording, and I'm really excited about it. So if you want to connect on a deeper level, look eye to eye, definitely join or hop on over to our YouTube. Link is in all of the bios and show notes and on all of our socials, so just go check it out. We're excited to be launching over on YouTube. So now to the topic at hand. There's no easy way to transition conversation that I've learned anyways. Let's start off with a tangent. I am learning the beautiful lesson of trusting yourself and listening to your intuition. So this podcast episode, I announced I was recording this probably a little over a month ago. No, I think it's been 2 months. It's been a while. We're going to talk about standing in your truth, right? So I posted about it in our stories. I was sitting down to record and I put a little sticker and was like, tell me what your biggest struggle is with standing in your truth. And I was so excited, and it was fascinating to see the responses to the sticker were all the same. And it was being scared of what other people think. That was the one feedback we got from everyone. It's wild. So we're going to dive into that part. All of that to say, I recorded this episode, and there were technical difficulties, and the video file wouldn't work, and I couldn't even open it. And then I recorded it again, and my computer decided to just reboot in the middle of recording, and the file was just gone. I tried to record again 3 or 4 times. This episode has been a journey in the making. And so you can imagine my reaction to that was frustration and anger because I just want to record this episode. I have so many things to say, and I've said them, and then when I go to record it again, I feel like I sound frustrated, right? And so I let it go. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm not meant to record this episode. And then Roe v. Wade happened. Situations have been coming up with my clients and my friends about standing in their truth. And I have the way that I'm doing this episode and what I'm talking about is completely different than the way that I needed to before, or that I was doing it before. And I really think the universe was trying to show me, and it was getting louder every time, don't record the episode yet. You have a few things that you need to see, a few things that are going to happen, a few things to experience before recording this episode, so that I am ready to be that clear channel to message this for you, to channel this message for you, right? I needed to experience the overturning of Roe v. Wade, not saying that that was meant to happen or that we wanted that to happen. Definitely not, but it happened. And the biggest things I have been going through myself and watching other people go through, and especially we're going through it as a collective right now, is the struggle of standing in your truth and the struggle of cutting off relationships that are no longer serving you or in your best interest. Coming from breaking generational curses, coming from healing generational trauma, and standing in your truth and standing firm in your boundaries, right? That is a huge thing that's happening. I feel like my generation and every generation after mine has just been stepping into this radical self-embodiment and unveiling injustices. And this is happening on a personal level. It's also happening on a global level. It's happening on, in our government and on a political level. And it's just We're opening all of these wounds and saying, look at these wounds. We need to fucking heal them. Right? So the point of that tangent is trust your intuition. Trust the way that the universe is guiding you. The analogy I always give, and I may have given it on another podcast episode, I don't remember, but I love Disney, and I always think of Moana when she is in the middle of the fucking ocean. The storm is coming. She's never sailed before. She doesn't know what she's doing. She's literally just following her gut and knowing that she needs to do this to save her tribe without any other knowledge. Right? That's it. She just has this feeling that she needs to go do this to save the world from this curse. And she sees the storm. She's on this raft that she doesn't really know how to use and is in this moment of, oh shit, things are going down. And she's scared for her life. So many things had to have been going through her mind. Obviously, they didn't voice all of that in the movie, but we can imagine, we can empathize. And I feel like that's where we're at. We're in this moment. And what happens? She trusts her intuition and she comes out on the other side, right? She comes out on the other side and she saved the tribe. She saved the world from the curse. She helped Gaia, or the earth. I don't remember what they call the earth. I haven't seen Moana in forever. Anyways. The earth goddess that she saves in her movie, she was successful. And she wouldn't have been if she had turned around and gone back, right? If she would have refused her intuition, if she didn't stand in her truth, she wouldn't have been successful. And I really think, again, that's where we're at. We're in the middle of this storm and it can feel so empty, whether you're going through this now or you've already kind of gone through this healing, right? You can think back of when you were in this moment of cutting off relationships that were no longer serving you, and even family members who no longer had your best interests at heart. Sometimes we have to cut off things like that and relationships like that, and it's fucking hard and it's a shit show sometimes, and you're in the fucking storm because it can feel so isolating and so alone and make you question if you're even doing the right thing. That's the moment in the storm where you have to trust. So that huge tangent to talk about, how do you confidently stand in your truth? And I'm going to take you through my beautiful and courageous you method. If you haven't listened to the episode yet, you should go check it out. I don't remember the number, but I'll make sure it's in the show notes. And we'll just make sure you have access to it somewhere. But if you want to look it up, it's beautiful and courageous you method. And I apply this method to everything in my life. It is part of my coaching program. It is how I've gotten to where I am today, mentally, physically, spiritually, how I've healed my trauma. And that's why I'm so passionate about it in my coaching practice, because it literally is how you get from a state of being stuck, a state of surviving, to a state of thriving and radical self-embodiment and really trusting who you are. So of course, standing in your truth is a big part of that. And when we think about it, we can go through these steps and apply them and really look at what our truth is and how to do that confidently. And the first thing I would say is, the first step of my method is awareness. How can you stand in your truth confidently if you don't know what your truth is? Have you really sat back and thought about that? And when you think about this, I hear Acacia, my kitty cat, talking to us. But when you think about this, think of truth and boundaries as they are stuck together. They are one, right? To stand in your truth, you have to set boundaries and live in your truth. Right? Solidify your truth. So be aware of what your truth is, whatever topic it is that you're thinking about, and think about your boundaries around that truth. right? So an example, I have a really good friend of mine that after the overturning of Roe v. Wade happened, she sat down with her husband and expressed her fear, expressed what she was feeling. They talked about, how this is going to impact their life and a lot of the scary realities of it. And they talked about their boundaries with it and where they stood on it, and they were united as a unit. Very important. So they became aware of the situation, what is happening, how it's impacting them, how they feel about it, and the boundaries that they have with it. Because this isn't a political debate, right? This is impacting so many people. And, people like my friend are scared to have kids because of things like PCOS and hormonal imbalances and high risks of miscarriage. And it's really fucking scary right now. So you have to know your boundaries and where you stand for when and if these situations come up. Especially if you're an AFAB, assigned female at birth, have that body where you can birth children. It's fucking scary, and we really need to align, especially if you have partners, on where you stand. So again, what did they do first? They aligned. They expressed how they felt about something. And you can do this personally too. Before she even went to her husband, she sat with, how do I even feel about this? Right? It's important to know how you feel before you have the conversation and bring someone in. So awareness. Then they went to one of their parents' house. I don't want to mess up how they told it to me, but anyways, for the example, they went to their parents' house, and the mom and dad were both talking about Roe v. Wade and how they were okay with it and how they were excited about it, and kept bringing up this conversation. And she kept telling them, this is not a conversation I'm willing to have. She explained where she stood on the subject and how it impacts her. And they continued. And she had to step away. She had to set that boundary. I cannot talk about this with you because this is not an agree to disagree situation. And she had to walk away. And her husband came in and set the boundary of, we can't talk about this. This is not a debate. This is her life and our life. And it is such a huge impact that this is again, not an agree to disagree. And I'm really proud of them for standing united as a unit and standing firm in their boundaries, because setting a boundary like that with a parent is hard, especially when it's a parent that you have a really good relationship with, right? And my understanding is this parent relationship that they're interacting with is a very loving one, and it was a conflict they never thought they would see, right? You have to stand in your truth, and it's hard sometimes. So again, coming back to the steps, we'll continue through this. Be aware of what your truth is, and if you have people that you trust, or if you have a partner, normalize having those conversations of, where do we stand on this? What does it look like? What are our boundaries? And even having that conversation with yourself, whether you want to talk out loud on a voice note, or you want to journal, or give yourself space to just think about it as you sit in the shower, but just taking the time to be aware of where you stand. Also, circling back to the feedback we talked about that we got when it came to this topic of, I'm worried about what other people are going to think about me, or what they're going to say about me, or how this will ruin my image. Okay. The next step is trusting yourself, and we get to build that trust. So if you're building a relationship with yourself, because to stand confidently in your truth, you got to know your truth. You got to know yourself, and you have to have a good relationship with yourself. So if you're worried about what everyone else is thinking or saying about you, what is that doing to your relationship with yourself? It's creating an environment of distrust. because you are telling yourself that their opinions and their thoughts and their expectations for you are more important than what it makes you happy, what is best for you. So how can you stand in your truth if you are not trusting yourself to do so? So if you keep cultivating this distrust in your life, that voice of your truth gets quieter and quieter and chooses not to speak up, chooses to retreat into a trauma response. Really, some of us avoid, some of us shut down, some of us get overly aggressive, right? There's many different trauma responses. Again, go check out the Beautiful and Courageous You Method episode where I go into detail on those. But you got to create self-trust. And each time that you stand in your truth and you start creating these boundaries, from the moment you're listening to this episode to the moment you have the conversation with yourself, each step that you're taking is building that trust, because you're taking the time to become aware. You're taking the time to intentionally choose you first. And so it's like a muscle. You have to flex it. You got to build that self-trust. It doesn't just happen every night. So standing in your truth, each intentional decision you make to do that will make that easier, will make standing in your truth easier, will make you understand. Because let's be real, the more that we know ourselves and love ourselves and trust ourselves and stand in our truth and radically, that word is hard to say, radically embody who you are, the more that you do that, the more you're going to attract the people who love you. Because when you start radically embodying who you are and you start standing in your truth and you start being firm in your boundaries, the people who truly love you will see that you are healing and you are thriving and you are figuring yourself out, and they're going to fucking celebrate you. And if they're not celebrating you, is it because they're triggered and they have their own shit to work through and they don't have the capacity to love and celebrate your success and your healing and your happiness? Or did they not really care about you in the first place? Did they just care about the version of you that they wanted you to be? See where I'm getting at? Speaking your truth should not be scary. You shouldn't be scared or worried about what people are going to say. And now I know it happens. It happens to me too. But we get to pause and reflect on what in this relationship is making me scared to speak my truth. And what do I need to change? Right? Because we shouldn't have relationships of fear. We should be confident in our relationships that they're loving and understanding and will hear us and see us and will celebrate that we are standing in who we are and that we know who we are and that we're happy. Or even when we're sad, just trusting yourself is so important. That's in speaking your truth. It may cause relationships to fall off and it may be a shit show, like I said earlier. But when you start attracting those relationships that genuinely care about you and celebrate you, it makes it all worth it. And I'll tell you, Tara is one of those people for me. I had always hoped for a friendship like what we have, and the way that we talk about boundaries and how we feel about things and check in on each other and just call each other for no reason. I've always wanted something like that. And how did I attract that kind of relationship? I was figuring my shit out. I was standing in my truth. When I'm starting friendships, I'm very honest about what I want from a friendship. You know, I don't want it to be one-sided. I don't want it to be just because we want or need something from each other. I just want it to be a friendship. So that kind of leads into the next step, which is creating a safe space. Gotta feel safe to speak your truth. So the groundwork for that we've already talked about, awareness and self-trust. Each time you flex that muscle, you feel safer speaking your truth. And so the best way that I know to do this is starting with people who you know will support you. In the example I gave earlier, my friend trusted her husband to really talk through the heightened emotions of what was happening and what she was feeling and where she stood and what her boundaries were, creating an environment where you can speak your truth safely and learn to navigate these conversations with boundaries and maybe even talking about things you're nervous to talk about. I know for me, I was nervous to talk about my business because I thought nobody wanted to hear me, right? How do you start building that? Creating a safe space. Talk to someone who will listen to you. I talk to my husband all the time. And I just need you to listen to me and let me speak about this confidently and create that safe space. Again, flexing that muscle. I also think it's important to, as you navigate your truth and understanding what that is and where your boundaries are, knowing what that truth feels like in your body, right? Also noticing what it feels like when you go against your truth. A lot of times when we stay quiet or choose not to stand in our truth or set our boundaries, we get that pit of anxiety in our stomach. Or we rethink the situation and how we could have said something, and it just, that gnawing feeling, right? And it may not feel like that for you. That's how it feels like for me and some other people that I know. But I know that everybody is different, and you might feel it in a different part of your body. Maybe you'll feel it in your neck and shoulders, get really sore, really tight, or you feel like you're going to throw up because it's just really stressful and that's how your body responds. And the more you're aware of that, again, the more you know yourself and where your truth is and how to stand in it, and your body, you'll be able to listen to your body because your body will tell you, this doesn't feel right. I need you to stand in your truth, and it will communicate that to you. So it's really important to connect to your body. On the other side of things, it's important to connect to your emotional state of being as well, and connect to your inner child. When we talk about standing in your truth and setting boundaries and knowing how to stand up in your truth, a lot of the things we have to unlearn in order to do that come from how our childhood was for us. How, did you feel safe standing in your truth when you were a child? Did you feel safe expressing yourself when you were a child? How were you taught to navigate these conversations when you were a child? Maybe you weren't even taught at all. And so it makes me think of Shrek. You gotta peel the layers like an onion or a cake. You gotta peel the layers back and unlearn all of these expectations and boundaries and just everything that's been placed on us around these conversations, especially if we were taught unhealthy ways of navigating these situations. I'm trying to think of examples and all is eluding me, so I'm hoping you understand where I'm coming from when I talk about this. But we get to, for example, here, I'll use my own life as an example. Growing up, I lived in a lot of abusive situations, and I know I've opened up about this on here before, and I lived in foster care homes. I've lived with my dad. I've lived with my mom. I've lived with my grandparents. I have been, my aunt, my uncle. I've been in so many different homes, and it's hard. Like, for me, I was scared to stand in my truth. I was scared to speak up, because if I did, people would just get rid of me. And so in my adulthood, even though I'm in a really safe space, that reaction comes up and I have to unlearn that. I get to unlearn that. Speaking in my truth is not a threat on my life. So I use my tools. I create a safe space. I connect with my body. I do breath work. I remind my body and my mind that I am safe now. And the more I cultivate that as I speak my truth, I'm more confident that I can do so. So again, peeling back that onion, I had to go back to my childhood to even figure out where this came from. And I don't necessarily think you have to always figure out the source of things, but it does help understand where your mind is coming from, and helps you peel back those layers just a little bit easier, because you can see your inner child and just love on them. Go back to your inner child and just hug them and let them speak their truth. Maybe you need to journal about, those situations where you didn't get to speak your truth, and just allow yourself to speak it in your journal, or speak it out loud, again, on a voice note, and just let yourself talk about it. It may not even be relevant anymore, but it was relevant to you and important to you when you were a child, which means it is important to you now. Even it just coming up in your mind as you're listening to me talk about it means that situation is probably something that you need to get off your chest, and you need to stand in your truth and build that strength in your confidence. Now, this next piece is a doozy, and that is forgiveness. You are rebuilding when you stand in your truth and you set these boundaries. You are building your relationship with yourself. And part of that relationship is healing all of those times that you put everyone else first, and forgiving yourself. You don't know what you don't know. Maybe you were never taught how to step in your truth, or how to do it healthy, or how to even embody who you are, figure out who you are, especially if you have trauma in your past, because you're stuck in this state of, I just gotta survive, or you're stuck in this state of being trapped and doing the same thing every day that you never give yourself the space to do so. But you don't know until you know. So giving yourself a lot of grace and compassion and love through this process, because we all slip up. We all have these thoughts come up, and we all have those moments where we stay silent, where we feel like we should have spoke up. Again, just being aware, loving and seeing yourself where you're at, and moving forward with confidence, knowing what your truth is and how you can stand in it to best love on yourself and represent yourself, because we are constantly advocating for ourselves, and it's important that we do so, even if it's basic needs of splitting up chores with your partner or your kids, right? Grace and compassion. Very important. Oh, I was trying to think if there was anything else when it came to standing in your truth, but I think that covers it. So just kind of a recap on that. And if you have questions, let us know on Instagram or TikTok, or comment on the YouTube video, wherever you find this. Definitely ask, and I will respond. I'm happy to help you, or maybe we'll do another podcast episode to address some of the questions that we get. But radically embody who you are, and give yourself permission to do so. Some of us have people who can advocate it for us, but they're not going to know how to do so if we don't tell them, if we don't set the boundary, if we don't stand in our truth. You are your own biggest advocate in all aspects of your life, and you are worthy of love. You are worthy of being seen. You are worthy of being heard. Your truth is important. And I feel like you need to hear that. You are important. Your story is important. And those who love and cherish you like I do will understand that you are striving to be the best version of you. You are striving to heal and be happy and cultivate the life that you've always dreamed of. This is where it begins. This is the work right here. This is where it begins. And I am so proud of you. And the right people will also be proud of you, and they will love you. And you are going to attract so much abundance and love in your life on this journey. And know that Tara and I are here to support you every step of the way, because you know what? It's continual work. We're here with you, going through these steps. I apply these steps to my life every day, because when you're building a relationship, it doesn't just stop. You're always contributing and giving love. And we get to remind ourselves of that. That includes us, and should include us first. Because the more that we love and cherish ourselves, the more that we can have the capacity to love and cherish others. Kids, partners, friends, whatever relationship. Your relationship should come first. And it's a hard one. Like, I feel resistance in my body as I say it, right? Because we think, oh, your kids should always come first, but I cannot take care of my kids to the best. I can't be the best parent that I can be if I'm not taking care of myself. I set that example. So if I put my kids first and I start denying myself things, and the number one thing for me that happens a lot is showers. I've always been the person that takes a shower every day, and I'm really obsessive compulsive about it. But after having kids, there are some times, or even in depression, taking a shower can be such a fucking task, and you start to deny yourself that task. You start to deny yourself these things. Maybe you're so busy cleaning the house and doing the chores and taking care of the kids and taking care of your spouse and making sure meals are all perfect that you forget to eat. You forget to take care of you. And you're setting that example for those around you that that's okay. And it's not. You see what I mean? So in the example of kids, right? That resistance I have in me, that's how I combat that. I tell myself, do I want them to feel like this? No. I want them to take care of themselves. I want them to love themselves and embody who they are. In order to teach and show them how to do that, I get to do it myself. And it's a journey, and we're all learning. Whew. I didn't think there was more, but apparently there was. I love and appreciate you, Magic Weaver, for sitting with me through this episode, and I look forward to chatting with you in the next one. This concludes another episode of our Weaving Magick podcast.
We release one episode a week, so be sure to subscribe to catch the latest episode as soon as it releases. You can find us on Instagram at Weaving Magick Podcast. That's Weaving Magick, Magick Podcast.
We would also love it if you could leave us a review. If you do, make sure to email us your review so we can send you a thank you gift. Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to find a way to weave magic into your daily life.